Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Hello and welcome to Engage for Success Radio, and would you believe it, show number 624 in our weekly series. Engage for Success is a not-for-profit movement and the UK's leading voice on the topic of employee engagement. We are out there raising awareness and running events through our area networks right around the country. And our topic and sector-specific thought and action groups are developing research, publishing case studies, and highlighting all the best practice that's going on out there. Now, to find more, please visit engageforsuccess.org. And while you're there, why not sign up for our weekly newsletter, which will mean you'll never miss out on any of our excellent free resources, events, and updates. And I'm Andy Gorham, your host for today's show and the founder of BizJuicer, the employee engagement and culture change consultancy that helps growing organizations become stickier from the inside out by helping them attract, keep, and develop great people. Now, a lot of conversations that we have on this show center around leadership, culture, and engagement. But often it's from a white collar or corporate perspective. Today's conversation, I think, brings us back to some fundamentals that apply to every workplace, regardless of role, industry, or job title. My guest today is Dave MacDonald, owner and president of the Better Together Group, a staffing organization built around a simple but powerful belief that if you help enough people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want too. Now, Dave's passion for people, and particularly for essential and blue-collar workers, comes from lived experience, a moment in time I hope he'll share with us during our chat today. And that moment shaped a career-long commitment to helping people find dependable, meaningful work and helping organizations build cultures that genuinely value the people who keep things moving. And at the very heart of Dave's work is a philosophy he calls WTF. Work hard, tell the truth, and finish the job. It's a refreshingly direct message about integrity, intensity, and intentionality, and why Dave believes every organization should be teaching people how to WTF. So today, we're going to unpack that. What does that really mean in practice? Why these principles matter more than ever in today's workplace, and how leaders can build cultures where effort, honesty, and follow-through aren't optional extras. They are the standard. Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
Andy, thanks so much for having me. I'm super glad to be on with you.
Great to have you here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. If the audience are anything like me, when I first read WTF, I was like, hello, this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. We will see what's going on there. And also, I think your specific focus around essential workers and blue collar workers, I think that's a refreshing kind of dive in. I'm a curious sort, Dave. When I was doing a bit of research into you, it was very clear that you are one of those guys who had something happen to them that has then kind of channeled all your focus, all your effort into work going forward. So I mentioned this moment in time. Would you be good enough to share what that thing was and how it's influenced you going forward with your work?
Yeah, happy to share really anything. Ask any questions. I will pretty much answer everything. I'm overly transparent and it gets me in trouble a lot. But I think the moment that you're talking about is a day when I got fired. And I've been fired a lot. So like, that's not just any day for me. I've had several of those over the course of my life. Fired and rehired at the same company in the same day. I've done that a couple of times. But that specific day that we're talking about when I had a moment of clarity was I was all of 24 years old. And by God's grace, I had just become the parent of two incredible young, what are young men now? This is 31 years ago. They just celebrated their birthday. But I had twins on February the 1st, 1995, and I got fired on March 1st, 2025.
Wow.
And my wife, understandably, wasn't working at the time, and we were already living check to check and hand to mouth. Like, honestly, in those days, I would pay my utility bill one month and I'd pay my phone bill the other month. Now, I'm not sure why I would do that, because really it's the same amount of money on the alternate months, but I felt like I could keep them from turning my services off if I kept that rotation going. I used to calculate the cost of the late penalty on paying my rent 10 days late versus the need for moving things forward. I was really hand to mouth at the time. And my wife and I decided, in the midst of that chaos, why not bring kids into the world? And, like most people, we thought we'd only have one, but we started out of the gate with two. And if you're going to have twins, I'd recommend starting with two, because you don't know what kind of world of hurt you're in for as a parent. And if you start out with more than everybody else, you don't know you have more. You just are, fighting to stay alive. But yeah, that day I was driving home from downtown Chicago to our little apartment in Wheeling, Illinois. And I was crying on the phone, talking with my mentor. And he said to me something to the effect of, Dave, it doesn't matter what you do. Whether at the time I had been a customer service manager, I had 18 people working for me in a call center, and I loved it. I loved mentoring these people. I love creating a high value on customer service. I liked, really making sure we were answering a higher percentage of our calls every day than the day before. I love that continuous improvement and seeking to serve. But I was all hung up on my title and trying to climb a ladder and failing at it, frankly. And he said to me, Dave, it doesn't matter what you do. It matters who you do it for. And it matters that it allow you to do the other things in life that are really important to you. And so at the time, I really developed this kind of concept of, if I get enough money out of the process, it doesn't matter what it was. And I've said 1,000 times in my life, if you paid me $10,000 a day to drop a cinder block on my foot 1,000 times a day, I could do that. Like, that would be a fair exchange for me. That financial security with that physical pain, I'd sign up. I'm not recommending that as a pattern, and I don't think anybody's paying people to do that, but it's just kind of, work is an exchange for money in a lot of extents. And for me personally, it was important that I recognize that my identity as a human not be tied to the role I performed at work. And so even as an owner of a company, and we have, I don't know how many people we have on our team right now. Like, I think we're back at 12 or 14. I just mentioned to you, we started 2 new people today.
Yeah.
And like, we don't run a big business, but we run a good business. And to me, it's not about the size or scope of my organization. It's about, does it fund my life and the things that I'm passionate about?
Yeah.
And that's really the goal of business for me.
I think, and this is what's great and refreshing to sort of hear from lots of people with different perspective on what work means for them, especially when we try and think about, where do you get your fulfillment from? I think this is a real challenge for lots of places, particularly in competitive industries. If it's only ever just about the paycheck, then you are totally at the mercy of the next person down the road who pays a few pence more for people moving. And there's always this friction, right, of trying to pay a decent, fair wage in your market and give them something else. And I'm not talking about bean bags and free pizza. I'm talking about having a sense of connection or belonging to something a little bit bigger than theirs.
And foosball in the lunchroom does allow them to have a sense of community, but like, is that a real benefit?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, if I look back, did I join and stay with that business because there was a table tennis table. I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I have been young, so maybe somewhere in there that kind of happened.
Well, I might for foosball, but I definitely wouldn't for ping pong.
There you go.
Or table tennis.
And that's the joy. Everybody is different, Dave, right? We've all got our little triggers. We've all got our limits. Right. I said my eyes popped out my skull when I saw WTF initially. I was like, oh, hello. What's all this about? Do me a favor, will you, Dave? Will you unpack where that's coming from? Where the whole
absolutely
WTF thing comes from? And then maybe for the rest of this episode, we can pick each one of those three elements apart and sort of hear some stories from you. How about that?
Oh, happy to. So I'm happy to say that we were supporting work hard, tell the truth, finish the job prior to WTF falling into the common vernacular.
Excellent.
Okay, because like if you look back on it, and I'm not sure about in Europe when it caught on, but in North America, particularly in Canada where we were at the time, WTF really found its common stride amongst the general population in like late 2000, like 2008, 2009, 2010. I'm not saying it was related to the downturn in the economy, but WTF that downturn. So I don't know when it came. I don't know who originated it, but we wrote when we started our business in 2005 as Revolution Staffing, now Better Together Group. We wrote on the wall, work hard, tell the truth, and finish the job.
Nice.
And it was my lily white Christian wife who like wouldn't swear if her mouth was full of it. She wouldn't say SHIT. But she was like, hey, did you know that our work hard, tell the truth is lining up with this WTF thing that I'm hearing all the time now? And, we live in a bit of a bubble ourselves where we're religious. And so, sometimes you don't catch on to trends as quickly as people that are more balanced or living in a broader scope of society. But for us, work hard, tell the truth, finish the job is really my origin story. It's who I am as a human. It's things that we were trying to build into our kids. Our kids were born in 1995 and in 1999. And so by 2005, we were already trying to instill these things in our kids as how to live life.
And I think that's what's really important, right? Because values get a bit of a bad rap, I think, in lots of places in business, because they're not steeped in any reality. They're really made for a poster rather than a movement. Yeah. And so, I think when we're thinking about personal values, and I think this is particularly true for owner founders, I guess it's easy for those guys, for us to attach our personal values to our business. It's our thing. We put a lot of ourselves into it. And therefore, hey, that's nice and easy to align. When we then try and find the links between our drivers and the guys who are working for us, it can become tougher. But I know this is something you're very, very passionate about. So how have you kind of made that come to life in your business?
Well, it's really interesting because like in management theory over the last 15 years, like 25 years ago, there was no culture. Nobody cared. Come to work, get a paycheck, go home, shut up. And then, culture started becoming a thing. And so founders and leaders of larger, and maybe more than 25 years ago, I don't have the timeline on this, Andy, but then it became more of like, well, we want to tell people what we want as an organization to be significant about us. And it was very top down driven. And then it got to a spot where, no, we don't want it to be top down driven. We want it to come from the people. And so we do, these culture assessments, and we try and draw out of people all these ideas. And then from amongst their ideas, we create our new corporate flagship. These are the things that are important to us as an organization. And carefully, I think that's crap. The reality is, and I'm sorry, for like large corporations where there's like, where the owners aren't really owners, where they're stockholders, and like, yeah, I guess in that environment you can do it from the ground up. I don't really know, but I think that culture is driven from the top down. Here's the thing about leaders, and what's been so um, uncomfortable for leaders in the last decade is leaders being told um, then lead from behind. And I believe in servant leadership. Absolutely, you should care for your team, you should support your team, and all of those things. But always asking your team's opinion about everything, and then making the decision based on what the group thought is, that's not leading. Leaders lead, followers follow. And so, from a corporate standpoint, or at least in our organization, I've tried to pretty up the WTF, and I've tried to like draw people into it. And in the end, that's how I hire people. I
Yeah.
hire people for work hard, tell the truth, finish the job. I interview them. I ask them questions specifically about, what working hard looks like to them, some models that they've seen of it, kind of who they aspired to be, that they saw that was a hard worker. And millennials, um, early in their career, that wasn't a thing for them. And later in their career now, it is much more important to them. Gen Z is very attracted to a work hard environment and to seeing leaders that have worked hard. And they do want balance, but they don't want it disproportionately. Um, Gen Xers only know how to work hard. Like we were abused to be work hard people. Or that's what the story is that we all want to tell people. And boomers were, the group ahead of the boomers were called the greatest generation. So like, how do you live up to that except to be a hard worker? So like, I think working hard is a super common element to workforce, and we try to front load our conversations about that to instill in everybody that there's expectations to what you do.
I think that the clarity and expectation is a really important thing. I think as humans, we function brilliant on that, on clarity and understanding where we're going. Most of us function much better when we've got a sense of the future.
Yes.
I also love the fact that this is values in action, right? The conversations you're having, the hiring you're doing, the role modeling that you're talking about. I don't think this matters whether you're, and this is, I'll get slammed for this, I'm sure, whether you're a massive company or a small company, it all comes down to behavior. And I think regardless of the size of leadership, what you show to be important through your words, actions, behaviors, what you prioritize, what you measure, what you reward, what you hold consequence to, that's eventually what is seen as important in the organization if you're consistent and constant enough in that action. And I think the fact that from day one you're having conversation with people to sort of say, hey, how can you contribute to these three things? Because it's not about fitting in, it's about contributing. And I think that's a fantastic
Yeah.
preface that actually lots of people who are doing this stuff unintentionally badly, it just come back to conversations and behavior. I think.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is, if your behavior doesn't depict the culture you're trying to build, it's going to fail no matter what.
And this must be
If the
connected to
leaders
tell
if
the
the
truth,
leaders
right?
don't behave the way they ask people to behave, it's going to be a problem. And we've gone through that in our organization, where I've tried to step away and hire in an executive to lead our organization. We used to be twice our size, and half as profitable. And when you try to give leadership away, I can help people hire in the right person to do that with, but like holding the reins and releasing the reins, the tension of when to give what, that's like a dance with every individual partner. and you have to be really careful about how you do it.
100%. I mean, I think that whole integrity piece, right? This must link to your tell the truth, right? So not just back up what you're saying from a values perspective, but elsewhere through that. Unpack that one for me.
Sure. So integrity so our three I's include integrity, intensity, and intentionality.
Yeah.
And so and typically when I describe this, I talk about a furnace. And so I'm here in Central Florida today, and it's like 40 degrees out, which is like, I don't know, what's that? Almost not quite 10 degrees Celsius, which is quite cold for those of us that are in Central Florida. My friends in Canada are laughing at me right now. But I'm freezing cold. I've got like a long sleeve sweater on. I got a vest over top of it. I got a t-shirt underneath. I'm like loaded up for bear today. But when you think about a furnace system that's distributing heat throughout your home, you have a firebox where the fire is roaring. Hopefully it's roaring, because when you want the heat, you want that fire going. And so what I talk about is intensity is the fire. It's that thing that's burning in you. It's almost uncontainable. And so in order to be a successful human, in order to be a successful employee, in order to be a successful parent, you need to have some fire. And if you don't have fire about raising your children, that's going to suck for them someday. And it's going to suck for you every day. If you don't have some fire about the work that you do, the actual things that you do in your daily task list at work, if you don't enjoy it or take pride in it, I'm not saying you have to love every bit of it. There's a reason why they give you money to do it. But if you don't take some pride in it or have some ownership of it, and that's the fire that's represented in the duties that we do every day in our jobs. And so I think that having that fire is really important. Otherwise, it's really struggles to get things moving. You need to have fire. The second element is intentionality. Intentionality is you have a way you do it. You have a plan and you execute your plan. And so for me, back to the furnace, the fire is the heat source. The way you get the heat to the certain parts of the house are the duct work or the radiator or like whatever how that heat gets dissipated throughout the house. That's the system that achieves the outcome that the fire is trying to do. So you need to have those two things partner together, both intensity and intentionality. You have to have an outcome you're driving for and a way to get to that outcome. And then the fire allows you to get the heat there. But here's the thing. If you don't have integrity is the firebox around the fire. And that's what contains it in the place where you want it to be and doesn't allow it to burn down your house. And so if you don't have integrity, your whole house will burn down. And I believe that that's true about every role that we face in life, every title you might have. If you're a coach, if you're like I said, parent or a teacher or in your job or a volunteer, if that thing that you're doing isn't true to the integrity of who you are, the things that are important to you, truly important to you, then it's going to be a massive problem.
Yeah.
And eventually the ductwork or that heating system will break down and the fire won't achieve anything, or worse yet, your whole house will burn down. And so integrity is who you are, and you need to be true to who you are. And I'm not asking you to live my life principles in that, my faith journey. That's my journey. You need to be true to you, but you need to take the time to invest in determining who you want to be and not just let it flow over you. And so I often work through with employees or with clients, like, who do you want to be on the day after you're dead? What do you want people to have said about you? What do you want to have accomplished? What are the things that you want to be known of you on that day after you're gone. And then let's draw a roadmap back to today that shows how you can get to that spot. And I
Okay.
think that that helps people determine their greatest priorities in life and to determine what they will live and die for.
I mean, I think that's a lovely metaphor and really, really, really clear in terms of this whole principle, because all these things kind of join up. I am interested in your perspective on your WTF about teaching this stuff, this rule, if you like, this guidance to people, and in particular stuff like the finishing the job element. You know, how's this stuff teachable? How are you teaching people? I'm just
Sure.
interested to get a little bit of insight into that, Dave.
Sure. So do you mind if I just kind of elaborate on how the WTF came to be to me? Like
No,
why
please
those are
do.
the
That'd be
three things?
fascinating. Yeah.
Sure. So, and I want to be conscious of our time, but I'll do this quickly. So work hard was really important to me because I grew up on a farm and
Mm.
farmers know how to work. And when I got engaged to my wife, my grandmother said to my now wife, "Why would you want to marry such a lazy, lazy boy?" And that spurs me every day to be a hard worker. Now, she wasn't trying to be hurtful to me, but there were definitely times in that era when I would sleep till 1 o'clock in the day, and she wanted somebody fixing the fence before 1 o'clock, because she went to bed at like 7 o'clock at night every night. So that was work hard. Tell the truth really was a moment for me in my 20s, after I got fired from that job, where I'd been working in sales and I've been working in customer service, and a lot of the leaders around me were teaching me to not tell the truth,
Okay.
to obscure the truth, to find an excuse that I could hang the hat on and then catch up on time. It wasn't a truthful environment, and I had a crisis of conscience one day at church. Or I could take you to the spot, I could take you to the pew, I could take you to the spot where I got down and I said, I am no longer going to be a liar. I will only be a truth teller. And that became foundational to my life and what I wanted to teach my kids and to who I wanted to be as a human. And then finishing the job, I'm an ADD kid. I'm like great at starting, awful at finishing. I'm a horrible finisher. And so we wrote it on the wall so I wouldn't forget that it was important, and so that it was easy for me to communicate with people in the office that I need people around me who are great at taking my ideas and executing. I have a new executive assistant today that started today, but really I like to think of her as execution assistant or the executor, the person who kills things and makes sure that it happens. So that's why those three things are important.
I love it, and we haven't had nearly enough time to get into the detail of this. Hopefully, we'll find another way of getting under the skin of it. But you've made a success of getting these values to live and breathe within your business. If you were to leave one piece of advice for people listening to this who are sort of like doing similar sort of things and have similar sort of challenges, Dave, where would you have them start? What's the first thing you would recommend they look into?
Integrity. And integrity goes back to something that you said earlier, Andy, the behavior of the thing. So don't say it and not do it. You have to do what you say. And that's integrity.
I so agree with you. I think all the little throwaway comments we make that we think just fall on the ground, no one's picked up, no one's heard, there's no impact, those are often the things that have the greatest impact. And so if what you're saying is contradicting all the other messages, then no one's going to listen to anything you say, unfortunately. So I totally agree with that. Dave, you're a fascinating man. If people would like to find out a bit more about WTF, about you and what the Better Together group does, where can they track you down, my friend? Where can they find you?
Go to WTFtalks.work. That's the website for our podcast. You can see Hannah and I talking through all sorts of different things there. Hannah's a Gen Z expert, and my daughter, and she can tell you how to solve your Gen Z problems, and how to hire them and keep them.
Brilliant. Look forward to that. That's great. Dave, so little time for such a huge topic, but thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think your message will particularly cut through a lot of the noise that perhaps sometimes we sort of see on things like engagement and culture, where we're really thinking about trust building, integrity, multiplying, all these kind of good things, right? Just from some simple, honest behaviors that we see through consistently. Fantastic. Well, listen, everybody, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Remember, go and visit engagesuccess.org, explore the show notes, download this show, download all the other shows, all the other free resources that you can get there at your leisure. We will be back at the same time next week. I'm Andy Gorham, and thanks for listening for Engage for Success Radio.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.